to meeting number 18 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Human Resources, Skills and Social Development and the Status of Persons with Disabilities. Pursuant to orders of reference of April 11 and May 26, 2020, the committee is resuming its study of the government's response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Today's meeting is taking place by video conference, and the proceedings will be made available via the House of Commons website. The webcast will always show the person speaking rather than the entirety of the committee. Before speaking, please wait until I recognize you by name. When you are ready to speak, please click on the microphone icon to activate your mic. Before we get started, I would like to remind everyone, especially the witnesses, to please use the language channel of the language they are speaking. So if you're going to switch from English to French before you, or French to English, be sure to change the channel before you change your language. It's a huge help for translation. I would now like to thank the witnesses for joining us today. With us today, we have appearing as an individual, Emma Rose Bienvenue, and from the University of Ottawa Students' Union, we have Babacar Faye, President, and Timothy Gulliver, Advocacy Commissioner. Ms. Bienvenue, please proceed with your opening remarks.
Thank you. I'd like to begin by thanking the committee for the invitation and, if I may, commending its members for wanting to hear from a wide cross-section of Canadian society, including younger Canadians like me. My name is Emma Rose Bienvenue. I am a recent graduate of McGill Law, and I also hold a master's in economics and a master's in business law from Sciences Po Paris and the University of Pennsylvania. My remarks today are going to focus on three topics. First, I'll say a few words about how I'm thinking about this crisis, which will hopefully provide useful context for my later recommendations. Second, I'll discuss ways to retrain and upskill the Canadian workforce. And third, I'll turn to how government can better support students, and in particular, students with disabilities. So I'm going to start by discussing two assumptions and beliefs that guide my thinking about the crisis. The first is that in my view, it's imperative that government make morbidity, and not just mortality, a top-of-mind consideration in its policy decisions, particularly as it assesses acceptable risks of virus exposure in the interim economic reopening. The outcome of coronavirus is often expressed as a binary. We focus on case fatality rates. So many survive and so many don't. And we judge the success or failure of government's responses by how many of their citizens died from the disease. The science, however, is increasingly clear that COVID-19 does not lead to binary.
Mr. Chair? Yes, Ms. Chabot? We have to solve the problem with the interpretation. We are not receiving interpretation at the moment because of bad sound. Thank you.
Madame Chabot.
Thank you, Ms. Chabot.
Second there, Ms. Bienvenue. Madam Clerk, I think we have a problem with the interpretation.
I'm being told that the sound is choppy.
Okay.
I'm wondering, it seemed to be fine a few minutes ago, but something happened. Let me see.
The IT folks want to chime in if there's anything that that can be done, and I would, if it makes a difference, we can hear from the Students' Union, come back to Ms. Bienvenue, see if we can resolve the problem while they're presenting their statement.
Was the interpretation the only problem? Could the English speakers hear me?
Yes.
Mais pas les participants francophones.
However, the francophone participants couldn't hear.
Ça c'est le problème.
That's the problem we want to solve. That's the issue we're trying to resolve.
Si c'est plus facile, je suis contente de...
I can wait, and I can speak afterwards.
Until we can see what's the issue.
Okay, Ms. Bienvenue, we're going to come back to you. We'll go to the Students' Union and then we'll come back to you. And when we do, you can feel free to either pick up where you left off or start from the beginning. We won't dock your time at all. So now we're going to go to the University of Ottawa Students' Union for a total of 10 minutes. Mr. Fay, are you going to lead off?
Yes.
Okay, please go ahead. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hello to everyone. Mr. Chair and honorable parliamentarians, thank you for allowing us to appear before you. My name is Babacar Faye. I'm president of the U of O Student Union. I'm accompanied by my colleague Tim Gulliver, Advocacy Commissioner. I will present a brief profile of our student community, the conditions created by this crisis and their experiences, particularly their financial situation. I would like to begin by emphasizing that we're very grateful to the government for the steps they've taken to help Canadian students, as well as to Parliament and the opposition members who are constantly seeking solutions to remedy the challenges faced by students. These actions have already alleviated many of the challenges faced by thousands of undergraduate students represented by the association. While the world stood still, the student community has felt the effects, facing a transition to distance learning that has created additional barriers, and this is in addition to the challenges they share with many Canadians, including the loss of jobs, loss of opportunities, worrying about paying rent and bills while paying for food. When the CERB came out, many students were left without a job at the end of the semester and with no way to pay their rent for the next month. A few thousand students had to leave their residences. The Canada Student Emergency Benefit provides some relief. However, the cost of living does not differ greatly in the student community, and we realize that even with the benefit, the situation remains uncertain for many students. At the same time, there is the specter of tuition fees for the fall. In order to better understand the effects of this pandemic, we conducted a survey of our student population on their experiences during this crisis and the academic, financial, and mental health impacts between May 5th and May 28th. It determined that this crisis has had a serious impact on students' ability to cover their basic expenses. In Ontario, this follows significant across-the-board cuts in student financial assistance. When we surveyed students, 44% said they were worried or very worried about not being able to pay the rent. 60% were worried or very worried about their ability to pay tuition fees in the fall. 80% thought that tuition fees should be reduced for the fall if all their courses are online. This is a crisis that affects all sectors, including students. Although students benefit from several support measures, tuition fees are a huge concern. The situation is worse for international students. Many are still in Canada because of the conditions of the pandemic. Just yesterday, we received an email from an international student who couldn't return home, and he can't work in Canada. The airline had canceled his plane ticket, and new tickets would be too expensive for his parents, who have to pay for rent, and choosing to between paying their son's tuition or putting food on the table. The student situation is not exceptional, and many international students find themselves in particularly difficult situations. Currently, there is a suspension of the maximum number of hours that international students can work, but it's still not enough. Many international students cannot apply for the emergency student benefit despite having suffered the effects of the pandemic. Without assistance from the government, while considering the border closures and the economic circumstances created by this crisis, international students are likely to be in a precarious situation for the fall, and many of them already are. It would be important to consider extending and enforcing certain measures to assist international students, including the National Service Scholarship, a scholarship program for international students or their host institutions, and the CERB. Indeed, this reality goes beyond a simple financial framework. Many students, especially international ones, face multiple challenges. They will be worsened in the fall when many universities will be offering distance education courses. This leads to many issues with regards to access to affordable and universally accessible learning materials, which my colleague Tim will address in his presentation. Thank you for your time. I'll turn the floor over to my colleague, Tim, who is the Advocacy Commissioner. Thank you. Mr. Gulliver, please.
Thank you, Rebecca, and thank you, Mr. Chair, and members of the committee for having us today and for hearing the student perspective. It's very much appreciated. And as somebody who has had the opportunity to work on the Hill so far in the past year, I've had a great appreciation for the work that you all do and the work that this chamber and its committees play in Canadian democracy. And I want to echo the perspective raised by my colleague and would like to also bring to the attention of members of the committee some other challenges that students have been raising with us. Firstly, the transition to a fully online learning model has not necessarily been a smooth road. Though we appreciate the hard work that our university and others have put in to make this work, we cannot ignore the class, racial, and rural-urban disparities within the undergraduate student population, which has had a direct impact on the ability of some to access the tools required to learn online. Examples of these tools include laptops, microphones, webcams, a stable Wi-Fi connection, and a quiet place to study and learn at home. Moreover, some programs may require students to purchase additional software or learning tools out of pocket, increasing the financial burden that students already face. In short, being able to thrive in an online learning setting is a privilege. It is not the reality for all. In our survey, we found that students with disabilities and racialized students were more critical of their online learning experience this spring. This must be addressed. When students are all on campus, many of these challenges are lessened or reduced, and there is a more equal opportunity for all students to succeed. However, these unprecedented times and the reality of online learning have shed light on the disparities that exist within our community. We are hopeful that the federal government may consider a policy measure, like a one-time bursary, to help students who could use some extra money to buy the learning tools they need to succeed in an online learning setting. Secondly, we remain keenly aware of and concerned by the impact of this pandemic on students' mental health. As many of you may be aware, the University of Ottawa is among many post-secondary institutions facing a mental health crisis. We have tragically lost 6 students to suicide on campus since April 2019. We recognize that this is a systemic problem that has no easy solution, but our concern is that this pandemic is exacerbating this crisis. In our survey, we found that 63% of students had reported that their mental health had worsened or significantly worsened. This is consistent with a survey conducted last month by StatsCan, which found that, quote, almost 2/3 of those aged 15 to 24 reported a negative impact on their mental health since social distancing began. Students are feeling less productive, less motivated, and are struggling due to the lack of social connection. And a second wave of COVID-19 would certainly exacerbate these struggles. Lastly, I would like to make an appeal, if I may, to all members of this committee. A 2018 report by RBC noted that since 1990, quote, the government's share of university funding has fallen by nearly half, and the cost of tuition has risen 2.7 times in real terms. Now, I took the liberty of calculating the average age of members of this committee and found that, on average, members of this committee would have been in university 30 years ago in 1990. And I would submit that it is more expensive to go to university today than it was 30 years ago. In 1990, according to the RBC, it took around 300 hours of minimum wage work to pay tuition. Today, it requires over 500. In 1990, in real terms, the average tuition was around $2,400. Today, it is closer to $6,500. In 1990, average full-time loan borrowing was under $3,000 a year. Today, it is around $6,000 a year. And according to the RBC, quote, over 20% of graduates with a bachelor's degree start out with more than $25,000 in debt, a phenomenon which is exponentially worse for our colleagues in law and medicine. In our view, it is essential that the federal government works to ensure this trend does not continue. And if not, the challenges already associated with being a post-secondary student in Canada will only worsen due to the current economic climate. In conclusion, in the immediate short term, our priorities as student leaders are A, calling for the inclusion of international students in the government's pandemic response, B, supporting students who are disadvantaged by online learning, and C, advocating for a holistic nationwide mental health response. But in the long term, as we look forward to what a post-COVID Canada will look like, we firmly believe there must be change. We must build a post-COVID society where education is at least as affordable as it was 30 years ago, and where every student can afford to help rebuild the Canadian economy rather than remain saddled in student debt for years to come. Once again, Mr. Chair, I'd like to thank members of the committee for their time today. We hope this is the beginning of continuing consultation with student unions during these trying times, and we're happy to take any questions at the appropriate time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gulliver, and thank you for the reminder that I bring the average age up in this group. Next, Ms. Bienvenue. Hopefully the technical problems are resolved and we can try again. You have the floor.
Thank you. I believe they are resolved, thankfully. So I'd once again begin by thanking members of the committee for the invitation, and if I may, commending them on wanting to hear from a wide cross-section of Canadian society, including younger Canadians like me. My remarks today will focus on 3 topics. I'll begin with a few words about how I'm thinking about this crisis, which will hopefully provide useful context for my subsequent recommendations. Second, I'll discuss ways to retrain and upskill Canadian workers. And third, I'll turn to how government can better support students, and in particular, students with disabilities. So I'm going to start with 2 assumptions and beliefs that are guiding how I'm thinking about this crisis. The first is that, in my view, it's imperative the government make morbidity, and not just mortality, a top-of-mind consideration in all its policy decisions, particularly in the interim economic reopening phase, as it assesses acceptable risks of virus exposure. The outcome of coronavirus is often expressed as a binary. We focus on case fatality rates, so many survive, and so many do not. And we judge the success or failure of a government's response by how many of its citizens died from the disease. The science, however, is increasingly clear that COVID-19 does not lead to binary outcomes. Many who survive it, particularly the 10 to 15% who experience severe or acute symptoms requiring hospitalization, suffer permanent damage not only to their lungs, but also to their kidneys, liver, heart, and even brain. These will require ongoing medical care and have lifelong consequences for their quality of life. Accordingly, it's my view that even for those likely to survive COVID-19, the morbidity risks of exposure should be central to policy decisions and are sufficiently great to justify the most stringent measures to avoid exposure. My second assumption about this crisis is that many of the changes that it's brought about will not be undone, not by a vaccine, not by herd immunity, and we do ourselves a disservice by assuming that they might. The world record for vaccine development is held by the mumps vaccine, which took 4 years. Concurrent trials for coronavirus vaccine candidates will shorten the timeline, but it is extraordinarily optimistic to assume that we will develop, test, and administer a vaccine in anything less than 24 months. Those 2 years or more will accelerate social and economic changes that would otherwise have taken decades to materialize. They're going to transform how we live, work, and learn, and those changes will not be reversed when the virus threat is contained. A clear-eyed acknowledgement of this is, in my view, the best way to guarantee better policy outcomes and a stronger recovery. Now, with these in mind, I turn to workforce interventions. Some sectors will bounce back relatively unscathed, and they'll bounce back quickly. Now, in these sectors, wage subsidy programs serve their purpose by avoiding the disruption that would otherwise result from layoffs, which sever the employer-employee relationship. But in other sectors, labor demand has permanently shifted. Much of the job displacement we've seen in recent months wasn't so much caused by COVID-19 as it was accelerated by it. Many of the functions most affected by the pandemic were already under threat from tech and automation. And what we've seen in a pandemic is that labor replacing automation is even more cost-effective because of its resilience to virus-driven shocks. Put simply, this means that in many sectors, labor demand has permanently shifted, and that wage subsidies will mask these shifts for as long as they're in place, and they'll delay the associated layoffs, but they will not reverse those underlying changes. This means that before the government begins to phase out income support programs, it needs to proactively identify where labor demand has shifted and where it has surged, to reorient its focus on retraining and upskilling programs that help prepare the Canadian workforce for their new post-coronavirus economy. To reskill at speed and scale, government should focus on 2 distinct interventions. First, rapid upskilling for short-term demand surges, such as retail grocery and last-mile delivery. And second, longer-term reskilling that can help workers move into careers aligned with future skill trends, like health services, remote work, and remote education. To this end, I have 4 recommendations. The first is that the format of retraining is ripe for innovation. In Canada, we've tended to focus on multi-year degrees, but in most sectors, microcredit modules can provide workers with targeted training in the most in-demand skills more quickly and at far lower cost. Microcredits will be most effective if developed in concert with employers or industry associations to ensure workers are provided with targeted skills that most closely match the needs of the Canadian job market. Second, as government prepares to phase out the CERB, it should consider offering displaced workers the option to continue receiving it for 1 or several additional months on the condition that they take that time to complete micro-credentialing modules. Particularly if these modules are developed in concert with employers, this will help ease their transition back into the workforce. Third, government should create an online talent exchange that helps match those who've completed microcredits to employers. This will increase job market transparency and reduce frictions to worker redeployment. This kind of exchange was recently designed in the US in just 6 days by a food and sector company group. And it was launched in April and has been extraordinarily successful at matching job seekers to food sector employees experiencing short-term demand surges related to the pandemic. And fourth, government should consider subsidizing retraining initiatives specifically for microbusinesses and SMEs. In Germany, the recent Qualifications Opportunity Act subsidizes companies' employee training costs up to 100% for microbusinesses and up to 50% for SMEs. So to reiterate, government should first replace multi-year training programs with microcredits developed in concert with employers. Second, consider extending CERB payments for those who decide to complete these microcredit retraining programs. Third, create online talent exchange that help match job seekers to employers. And fourth, subsidize the retraining costs of microenterprises and SMEs. So now turn to students, which as a recent graduate, I may be most equipped to discuss. Of the many ways government can support students in this crisis, few are more pressing than ensuring universal access to high quality internet. CRTC data shows that 11% of Canadian households still don't have access to internet. And even those who do face massive disparities in connection speed and reliability. In a remote work environment, the inequities this creates cannot be overstated. The Ottawa Catholic School Board, for example, recently recommended to students who didn't have access to internet at home to hunker down in parking lots to listen to lectures and complete their assignments. In Manitoba, the Northern Garden Hill First Nation was forced to cancel the school year outright, citing poor internet connectivity as a key factor in the decision. So my recommendation is simple. You should provide every student that does not have an internet at home with a mobile Wi-Fi hotspot devices. The long-term work of this committee is, of course, to wire all of Canada to ensure universal broadband internet. Big years, and we don't have years. Wi-Fi hotspot devices cost about $10 a month, and they could immediately close the digital divide that remains a limiting factor for so many students. Spectrum, the US broadband provider, recently launched a program that provides these devices free of cost to any K-12 student that does not have internet at home. The Canadian government should pressure Canadian carriers to follow suit and subsidize the cost of doing so if need be. As it becomes increasingly clear that social distancing measures will continue to limit in-schooling for 1 year or more, government needs to do everything in its power to ensure that all students have the internet that they need to succeed. Now, I'd like to say a note about disabled students. It's become almost trite to recognize that the pandemic has disproportionately burdened those least equipped to bear its weight, and students with disabilities are no exception. The additional support they've received through CESB has helped them absorb the cost of purchasing ergonomic equipment and assistive technologies, but critical gaps remain in the delivery of online learning. Educational institutions in Canada have not historically prioritized the procurement of accessible technology. This means that the shift to remote learning has replicated in their digital classrooms the barriers disabled students already faced in the physical world. There are two cost-effective ways government can help. In the short term, government should pressure the companies that design the products, apps, and schooling technologies currently in use to create a mandatory accessibility issue complaint mechanism with a prescribed timeline for remediation of reported issues. This would ease the immediate challenges to disabled students. Second, government should educate employers and universities in how to continue making remote work an option. This will broaden access to education and to employment for students who might otherwise have been limited by their physical disabilities. And to conclude, the challenge before this committee is great. These are difficult times, but great challenges make great opportunities. And no one is better positioned than the elected men and women on this committee to seize that opportunity and assert leadership in helping Canadians build back better, ensuring we come out of this pandemic stronger, more resilient, and more united. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bienvenue. We're going to begin now with questions, starting with Ms. Falk for 6 minutes. Ms. Falk, you have the floor.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Chair. And I want to thank all of our witnesses for your comments. As our committee evaluates the government's response to this health crisis, I would argue that it is very important that we not only are looking at the immediate needs, but that we're also looking at the long-term impact of this crisis. So the economic fallout of this pandemic is, and we know will be significant. It is changing the job market, and some of those changes may become permanent, as we know. This will certainly have a significant impact on students, graduates, and young Canadians who are entering the job market or nearing entering the job market. In the previous parliament, we know that this committee, HUMA, studied experiential learning and how valuable it was in helping students integrate into the workforce. And I do just want to make note that some of the government's responses for students was tied to work and to volunteer opportunities, but those programs have been slow to roll out. So unfortunately, the reality is that those opportunities to connect students to the workforce are largely just not there. My first question is for Emma Benvenu. You had wrote an article called 7 Predictions for the Post-Coronavirus World, and in it you had talked about a move towards automation, that a lot of companies will transition jobs to automated jobs, and those remotely capable jobs might leave the country. I'm just wondering, what impact do you think a move towards automation would have on the job market? And in particular, how does this change the job market landscape for students and for graduates?
Thanks for your question. I'm glad you read the article. So, I mean, for those who haven't, the basic point I made there was that to survive any deep economic crisis, firms need to lay off their least productive workers, automate what can be automated, and in a pandemic, make everything else remote capable. And once companies figure out their remote work down steps, they'll eventually realize that someone remote in Ottawa can be remote in Sri Lanka, and often at much lower cost. And so the basic point there was that you would see a shift from in-person to remote, and then from remote to remote overseas. This obviously is a challenge for developed countries, but I think Canada is well positioned to succeed in that environment. We have an extraordinarily educated workforce. And the network effects of being domestic continue to be strong for industries that require certain qualifications from their employees. I think in other sectors, it's going to be more difficult. And that's why in my comments, I tried to emphasize that we need to recognize the changes that at this point, I think are largely inevitable, and focus on a retraining and upskilling so that the workforce can succeed in that environment. So anything that can be automated, I think it's safe for the committee to assume will be in relatively short order and much more quickly because of the pandemic. This is true for 2 reasons: because automation is often cost effective, and because robots don't get coronavirus, right? So employees that perform a function are susceptible to getting the virus and being disrupted, whereas labor replacing automation makes the business more resilient. So I think the government, recognizing that, should focus on identifying jobs that are susceptible to automation and looking at what the workers in those positions, what they're developing a really granular profile of their skills and aptitudes, and then focusing retraining programs on closing the skills gap with adjacent skills. So people that do one thing may be really well positioned and need minimal training to be reskilled for an adjacent skill in a different industry, for example.
Okay, thank you. So I'm just wondering, in your opinion, do you have any idea or any suggestion which part of the economy might be moving towards automation?
Yeah, so I mean, I think even before the virus, because of lower wages and increasing wages in certain manufacturing countries like China, and you had automated factories, and that was already starting a trend where manufacturing was something really difficult to keep overseas and very for labor reasons. So I think manufacturing is largely going to automate and come back to be reshored domestically to bring it closer to Canadian R&D centers. I think food production, it's been super disruptive in this pandemic because meat production in particular is very difficult. It's labor intensive. It's very difficult to do in a socially distanced way. So you're seeing huge investments by food production companies in how to automate and just have much less workers. And I know that that's a big employer in BC and Alberta. And so I think focusing on how people that work in food production and meat in particular can transition into other industries should be a priority.
Okay, thank you. In difficult economic landscapes, it is arguably more difficult for those entering the workforce to get jobs, as there are more applicants with less jobs available. Experience and skills will be all that more important. I'm just wondering, what role do you see experiential learning playing in the job market moving forward? And what role can the federal government play in facilitating experiential learning and skill development?
Is this a question for me?
Yeah,
Okay.
anyone, yeah, for sure.
So I would say 2 things. I think one point I tried to make in the retraining kind of focus was that in Canada, for good reason, going to university is great, but we've tended to focus on these very long, multi-year, broad degrees that often don't very closely match on to the skills and demand in the labor market. And I think a combination of very targeted retraining and experiential learning is a really powerful kind of blueprint for how to design retraining programs that will help upskill and prepare the Canadian workforce for that automation and for those kind of structural changes. So I think having retraining programs that are much shorter and much more targeted and developed in concert with the enterprise that will eventually provide the experiential learning is a really cost-effective way of making sure that that transition happens as smoothly as possible.
Thanks, Ms. Bienvenue, and thank you, Ms. Falk. Next, we're going to go to Mr. Turnbull, please, for 6 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks to all the witnesses today. I've actually learned a lot in a short period of time here from all of you, and I really found the opening remarks to be thought-provoking, to say the least. I have lots of questions. I prepared many for Mr. Fay, but I also have some for Ms. Bienvenue. I found your comments really got me thinking. I'm going to start with one for Ms. Bienvenue. I hope I'm pronouncing your last name right. You talked about this sort of transformative impact of COVID-19 and this sort of, I'm going to call it labor market mobility that's almost required or going to be necessitated by the shifts in our markets. I wondered if you could speak to whether there are any emerging industries or sectors that you think may not otherwise have existed or may just be new and emerging that we could anticipate. So that's just a question that I had for you.
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, and I can think of quite a few. I think for every sector of the economy that is going to suffer in this crisis, there's often going to be a few that will bloom, right? And so I think any technology that enables remote work and remote learning is going to do really well. So that includes everything from home office furniture to software that allows you to, collaborate on presentations and have meetings in a way that is enticing. I think virtual reality is going to explode. I think touch first technology. So when you go into a store, rather than opening the door, for example, sensors allow you to do the things you usually do in the physical world without touching them, I think are in the coming years going to really surge. A fun kind of like rule of thumb is anyone that traffics in bytes and boxes. So bits as in like internet technologies that allow you to do things remotely, and boxes as in things that let you buy things without having to interact with the business itself, are going to do really well. I think logistics company, particularly in a country like Canada that is so big and so spread out, are going to, you'll see clear winners, I think, emerging because of the complexity of their logistics. And then I think companies like Shopify, right, that allow small enterprises to participate in that bits and boxes experiment, right, where you can interact with customers without having to physically have them come.
Thank you. Yeah, that's great. And it sounds like you've got lots of good ideas about what might be emergent. Thanks. Mr. Fay, I'm going to go to you. I know that our government has announced $9 billion in support for students. Students, by far, their learning experience and career pathways are a sign of success for all of society. I don't think there's anybody around that wouldn't say we want students to be successful. Do you think that and you mentioned the 44% of students that were worried about paying their bills. Do you think our Canada Emergency Student Benefit and the $1,250 a month with an added amount for students that have disabilities or provide care to a child are is that relieving that anxiety and that worry for the vast number? What's the impact of that investment?
Certainly. I believe that the CSB was certainly a relief for students. Considering that when we came out of the pandemic, a lot of students did not apply, were not eligible for the CERB. And a lot of students found themselves either in between paying for their rent and paying for food, and found themselves unemployed and looking for opportunities for the summer. Considering the lack of opportunities and lack of opportunities to really earn money during the summer, I believe that the CSB did play a role and did play a really important role in alleviating the burden and the financial burden for students during the summer and for earning money. But also we have to keep in mind that a lot of students work during the summer to be able to afford to pay their tuition.
And go back
when
to
we
school.
look at and when we look at the amount given per month, and you look at the calculated the wage per day and per hour, and you compare that to the amount and the wage given for the CRB, which is supposed to be a living wage and a minimum wage for people and for students, that would, having that same amount would play an important role in ensuring that they're able not only to subside and survive during the summer months, but also to looking towards the fall and being able to put that money aside and put a little aside for the fall and looking towards tuition as well.
So can I ask you a follow-up question about that? So we also announced new eligibility criteria for the Canada Student Loan Program and a doubling of the Canada Student Grants. Do you think that that's going to have an impact on helping students go back and re-enroll and pay for that tuition in the fall?
Absolutely. I think that would have an important impact. We have to ensure that these are available, but that they're also that there's an equivalent, or that these are that there's the amount of government aid and student loans given for Canadian students is sufficient, and there is a need, I believe, for more support when it comes to just the other factors that might surround it, that might apply, that might not be considered when it comes to students. We typically have a sort of not, to use the word, a narrow field when it comes to students, and we usually have that perception that students have the tuition and that have only the tuition to worry about and the tuition fees. And I think we need to expand that view and consider that a lot of students also have a living standards to uphold, and the cost, and looking at the entire cost of living for students. I think that we could look at pushing for a more complete approach when it comes to promoting more, for first of all, accessibility for learning tools and learning materials and other tools that may aid students in their learning, but also looking at the rent and the ability to find places and to find places to rent, but also looking beyond just domestic students, but also international students who don't apply for that help and who don't receive that aid, and who don't apply for example, the Canada Student Grant.
Thank you, Mr. Fay. Thank you, Mr. Turnbull.
Now we have Mrs. Chabot. 6 minutes. Thank you. And thank you to our witnesses. My questions will be for Mrs. Bienvenue, or Ms. Bienvenue. Thank you for your testimony. You did write a very interesting article on many different subjects, but because I have limited time for questions, I'm going to begin by automation. So this was already an issue before COVID. We know that this was something that was underway. And myself, I sat on the Partners Commission for the Labor Market in Quebec, and this united labor and management, especially in the manufacturing sector. So this was part of the necessary adaptation. So we could see that it had started. So did this pandemic, will it accelerate automation? Well, oftentimes things accelerate in the middle of an emergency. I'm not 100% convinced, but I might be convinced. Will this be sufficient to say that we're going to go further? And here's my question. It would also be in the same vein. If there are advantages, what are the disadvantages? Because we're going to have to heavily rely on technology. And when we do that, how can we take into account the social effects and the knowledge effect? When I mean knowledge, I'm talking about skills. Skills and knowledge and ways to be.
Votre micro est...
Your micro's on mute. Yes. I'm sorry. Thank you. It's a very important issue. I'm from Quebec, so this is dear to me. Now, with regards to the acceleration of automation, my opinion is that this will be produced by the fact that during the interim period, we're having to live with the virus. We don't have vaccine, and so it's very difficult in a manufacturing context to have the same number of people working together and next to one another. So acceleration will be a need so that manufacturing can continue to produce in the interim period before we have a vaccine. So 2 or more years. And we're going to have to continue with social distancing and the measures in place now. So these businesses, they're going to look at this. If automation is a better option than having employees, they won't be able to have as many employees in their factories. And if we talk about technology, it's difficult because it's very important to make huge investments in the technology sector. And I think also on this point, it's important to anticipate changes before they happen. If automation happens, this is when we will begin to invest. So it's too late.
Même si c'est pas pour cette année.
So even if it's not this year or next year, we must recognize that automation is an issue that would require a technological solution. That's for sure. Well, a technological solution, but one that relates to the issue of knowledge. There is some expertise amongst workers that we should not lose. These are some of the issues being raised. I was asking that question in a global sense, as in terms of the labor market. Employees are part of the solution rather than part of the problem, and this knowledge base has to be kept. There has to be a balance there. So I'll ask you another question. You had not really spoken that much about it, but I'm interested in it. The issue of telework. You have made some projections about that. We have seen that accelerate in the pandemic's context, in services where this wasn't really used. In Quebec and in Canada, telework is about 13%. It's not a very it's not very developed yet for all kinds of concrete reasons. But do you think that telework, work from home, would grow in sectors where we had not seen that before? And if so, as far as the working conditions of employees, should that element be taken into account? Because that can bring about some inconveniences also. Yes, as you mentioned, telework will certainly explode in Canada. And in all countries, I think the experience of doing this by necessity did show that it is indeed an attractive solution for a lot of people, especially people that previously had to take transportation or travel to go work in a city or long distances. They find that they can have a much shorter working day in terms of transportation if they work from home. People who have children will obviously need a lot of support in this transition period, especially since now they are working when they cannot really go to the office by necessity. Working conditions, as that point you raised, it can mask some inequalities in terms of working at home. If you have employees in an office, the office environment somehow balances things. There is more fairness, so to speak. Employers are making reasonable accommodations for people who have physical limitations. So I think we can come up with adequate arrangements for people living with a condition that can limit them physically. So, say people in a wheelchair that have difficulties accessing offices. We can take into account issues relating to telework that would provide more opportunities to more people. Thank you, Madame Bienvenue and Madame Chabot.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you to all the witnesses for your presentation. I would like to first ask Mr. Fay, you touched on the issue around the expenses, the financial expenses for students, and albeit it was a first step in terms of the government coming with a student CERB for the students, but the amount was lesser than the regular CERB. I wonder if you can comment on that and what your thoughts are with respect to the difference in amount.
Yeah, I just need to switch interpretation. My mistake, sorry. Definitely. So I believe the amount when it comes to the expenses, if you look at just the expense itself, and I believe I have the number here. So the amount of if you look at the minimum wage in the province of Ontario, which would be $15 per hour, and I think which was calculated compared to the to what the CSB would give, which was about $7.80 per hour for a student. You'd see that it's half the amount. And when it comes to the living wage and when it comes to the expenses that students would face on a daily basis, they do face the same expenses that students would usually, that normal people would usually face. And I think that there is also the added burden of just the worry of, again, the tuition fees in the fall and the tuition fees that you may have not paid for the past semester or for the summer as well. These are added burdens in addition to either paying rent and as well as considering that the economic impact of the pandemic and a lot of parents, a lot of students not receiving the support from parents, either having lost their jobs or having been laid off temporarily for that period as well, and there's no additional amount of support for those parents or for that as well. There are lots of factors that create concerns when it comes to the equity of the amount given for students and for the regular population.
Thank you. So would it be fair to say, maybe I can get a quick response from all of the witnesses, that the government should, in fact, acknowledge the hardships that students experience because their living expense is just the same as everyone else. And so therefore, the amount for the student CERB should be actually, in fact, the same amount as the regular CERB. So if I could just get a quick yes or no from all of our witnesses. We'll start with thank you, Mr. Fay. Ms. Bienvenue?
I think so, yeah.
And for Mr. Gulliver?
Yes, I agree.
Mr. Gulliver, sorry.
Indeed, yeah, I agree.
Thank you. I'd like to actually just turn quickly to the international student issue. They've been left out of any support, and there's been tremendous hardships for them. I've been hearing that from my own community as well. So I just wonder if I can get a quick comment from each of you about that. Do you think that international students should also get emergency support from the government in this pandemic? We'll start with Mr. Gulliver and go the other way around.
Fantastic. Yes, I absolutely do agree, Ms. Kwan. We're very concerned about the situation for international students, and we're waiting currently on the Canada Student Service Grant eligibility criteria. Very hopeful that at the very minimum they'll be eligible for that. But there's lots of concerns for international students on our end. Absolutely.
Thank you, Ms. Bienvenue. On the same question.
Yeah, so I do, and I would also say a word about it on the question of whether the student benefit should be the same as the CRB. I think it's been particularly frustrating for students in my experience that once who were graduating into the pandemic and so had a job waiting for them that then was, canceled, were denied the full CERB because they had not lost a job that they were currently employed in, but, did lose one nonetheless. So I think that merits, a second look because I understand the frustration.
Thank you. Actually, I'd like to just bridge onto that before we go to Mr. Fay on that last question. In fact, many students who are interns, unpaid interns, and some of them have contracts that are lined up after the prestigious internship that they were going to have, but that contract got canceled as a result of COVID, and now they're completely out of luck. And because they're on an unpaid intern, even though they get a stipend for various allowances and so on, that does not count as income. And so therefore, they do not qualify for CERB or the student CERB. And so this has created tremendous hardships. I just wonder on that, do you think the government should also rethink the impact for interns and to ensure that they get support during this pandemic?
Yeah, I do. And I mean, I think kind of structurally, right, the way it was designed, which I understand, was if you were working and then lost a job, right? Whereas I think what was trying to be expressed was if you lost a job, right? And I think for many students, right, the way the job market works in particularly law school is that they have a job and they have not yet begun it, but because of the timing of this pandemic, right as they were about to graduate into the labor market, often with huge amounts of debt, they lost their jobs but didn't qualify because they hadn't yet begun, right? School wasn't over when this pandemic started really impacting the economy. So I think there's been a lot of frustration on that end, and which I understand, right? I do think that the intent was if your employment was impacted by COVID-19, and yet they're no longer students and have lost the jobs they thought they had, but are still only eligible for the lower student amount.
Thank you. And internships should be seen as a job, and right now they are not. Yes, thank you.
Thank
we'll
you,
come
Ms.
to
Kwan, and thank you, Ms. Bienvenue. No, it's right at the time there. Mr. Viss, please, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair, and I'd like to thank all of the witnesses for a very great discussion this morning. I just want to touch on Ms. Bienvenue's points about internet access. Just really quickly, do you believe internet is an essential service?
I mean, absolutely. And I believed it before the pandemic, but I believe it now.
Yeah. Do you think it's equitable that First Nations, especially, and rural Canadians have disproportionately worse internet access than other Canadians?
I think it's a national embarrassment.
Yeah. Would access to internet help alleviate poverty in rural Canada?
Unquestionably.
Yeah. How do you think the Canadian economy would benefit overall if we provided stable and secure internet to all Canadians?
Enormously. I mean, huge portions of its workforce are being left out of, the knowledge base, but also the economic productivity, and that's a loss for everyone.
Yeah. To Mr. Fay and Mr. Golliver, would you be able to function as a productive member of society without access to the internet?
I don't think I would be, especially considering my meetings every day. I wouldn't be able to do so.
Yeah.
Agreed. Absolutely not. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. So I'm just making those points known. I represent over 30 Indigenous communities, and many of the young people in those communities, that's the reality that they face. So I to Ms. Bienvenue's earlier points about the labor market, that is all very, very relevant. But as an MP that represents a riding 22,000 square kilometers with many, many rural communities that can only be accessed by Forest Service roads, that they find themselves in a very challenging position, not only normally, but now especially given the COVID-19 pandemic. So thank you for answering my questions on that. To Mr. Fay or Mr. Golliver, regarding experiential learning and connecting students to the workforce, do you think that the federal government could have done a better job of of connecting students with work by simply providing direct funding to them through the CSCB?
Sorry, could you repeat the question? It cut out for me on my end. My apologies.
Okay. Do you think we could, as parliamentarians in the government, we could have done a better job of incentivizing job matching programs through the pandemic to help students?
Certainly. I also think that the reality is there aren't many jobs in the market right now, which is obviously extremely concerning. So I think it's always a challenge that's actually quite systemic, and that will require a long time to address.
Okay. Hello? Okay, thank you. Sorry, I just had a connection issue there. In light of many educational institutions planning on offering virtual courses come September, how does the student union at the University of Ottawa feel about the prospect of online learning this fall?
I can go ahead. It's quite challenging, I would say. Online learning has kind of been thrust on us in a way that was completely unexpected, and obviously the university is working overtime to make it work. We are especially concerned about the students who can't learn online, don't have that internet access, as you correctly mentioned, sir. And I think that that's very worrisome, and we really want to ensure that there's additional tech support to allow these classes to run seamlessly, which they have not so far.
Okay. Generally speaking, we've heard other witnesses speak about, and Mr. Gulliver, you can perhaps answer this question as well. Generally speaking, we've heard a lot of other Canadians have had their mental health impacted by the pandemic. What's been the experience with students at the University of Ottawa, anecdotally, from what you've heard?
Yes, well, I mean, both anecdotally and statistically, we are seeing the same trends among youth that Statistics Canada is reporting, which is a significant worsening in the mental health of students. And as you are well aware, mental health among students is one of the most important issues. It's a very important issue on campus, especially in the context of the mental health crisis that we find ourselves in. And so we are extremely concerned and worried by what the future will look like. And we have seen a quite substantial amount of students feel less motivated, less productive, and that has obviously takes a toll on them, and we're very concerned about that.
And Mr. Gulliver, like moving forward, even today in our discussion, we've heard a lot about the post-COVID-19 workforce and the labor force. As a young person in university, what can us as parliamentarians do to equip young people with the skills that they need for the 21st century?
A short answer, please, Mr. Gulliver.
Yeah, well, it's a very broad question. So I think the what I would say, and perhaps not a very direct answer, but the situation is changing very rapidly. I think it's really important to keep students in the conversation, keep student unions in the conversation as we move forward, because the challenges are definitely great. And to provide students with those work opportunities, which might have lost this summer because of co-op opportunities that fell through, or internships that might have fell through, that's very worrisome in our end. We want to see a more robust infrastructure in that regard in the future.
I think that's a very good point to end on. Thank you so much for your testimony today.
Thank you, Mr. Viss. Thank you, Mr. Gulliver. And finally, we're going to go to Mr. Dong, please, for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Chair. And I want to thank all the witnesses for coming today and answer all these great questions with great answers. I want to go to Mr. Fay first and talk about international students. In my previous, role, I was a provincial member, and I helped in rolling out the free tuition policy here in Ontario. And unfortunately, with the current government coming in, that program was replaced by a commitment to reduce the tuition by 10%. It doesn't matter college or university, they're all required to reduce the tuition by 10%. And in a way, I see that this is going to put additional pressure on the tuitions for international students. So first question is, have you seen that effect taking place in Ontario?
Yes. So in Ontario, we kind of have when it comes to international students and that perception. I've been especially when considering the research I've been doing and looking into the trends in Ontario. We've noticed that there's a trend in a reduction of first of all of the share of government investment in post-secondary education. And then that compounded on, first of all, the federal share as well. And that reduction compounded on the provincial reduction of investment, pushes universities to seek alternative funding. And with that alternative funding, they usually seek to raise fees or to raise fees to alleviate that burden of funding for their budgets. And international students receive the brunt of that rise. And you can see that, you can observe that with the tuition fees, but also with the different costs that they face. And also you could see that the international students are severely impacted just by by the reductions of they're used as, I hate to use the word, but the word that was used is cash cows, I believe, and that's when it comes to the tuition fees, and you look at the differences, they usually pay tens of thousands more than domestic students in tuition fees. It's hard to not to discount that statement.
Yet they support such large portion of our economy, and I think it's fair to say it's unfair to a lot of international students. But respecting the difference in jurisdiction, we know that higher education is mainly under the provincial jurisdiction, but the federal government has been quite supportive and moved very quickly during COVID-19. I remember the exemption for valid student visa holder to still enter Canada, as well to the broadening of the 20-hour per week work limit for international students. If they're in essential service, they're allowed to work and earn that very much income. But I want to thank them for all that work they do. As well, if someone cannot come to country,
Mr. Chair, Ms. Chabot? Yes, there's a problem with the interpretation because of the sound. Thank you. I don't know if the problem is because of interpretation. There is a lot of noise on the line. Perhaps it's a connection problem. Would it be possible to solve that? We're almost done with this round of questioning.
Yes, may I continue, Mr. Chair?
Est-ce que ça marche, Madame Chabot?
Is it working, Ms. Chabot?
Yep, please go ahead, Mr. Dong. You've got about 1 minute left.
Okay, so I'll get very quickly. So basically, we introduced a whole range of policy changes in support of international students, including those that cannot enter Canada. They are allowed to study up to 50% of their course load abroad. What's your comment on that? And what do you hear from your membership and people around you, especially from the international students? Are these policies working in benefiting to them?
I think that there is this policies to bring a certain benefit, but when it comes to the job limit and job hours, it's hard for international students to really see that benefit because of the lack of opportunities and the lack of jobs that are available right now. For just in general, because of the effects of the pandemic. I believe that there could be more to be done to directly support international students to directly alleviate their burden. I think that often they're not able to find access to these resources, and they don't have the resources that they don't usually have the resources.
I don't have much time. What kind of direct support do you mean?
Actually, you don't have any. Thank you, Mr. Dong.
Mr. Chair, I was interrupted, and it was taking a few minutes. Can we just allow Mr. Fay to answer that question?
Very briefly, Mr. Fay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So essentially, the resources that international students would need would be more information and more access to what information that they need, especially when I'm thinking about international students who want to come to Canada and how to apply for a visa, but also if they're coming to Canada, what should they expect, what are their expectations if they're going to receive government aid, and what should they expect when it comes to for example, a national crisis, for example, during the COVID-19, and what the government of Canada would expect for them, and how they should prepare for that in the future, or should this reappear, should an event like this reappear, and where they would be able to find jobs or something, or opportunities as such as well.
Thank you, Mr. Fay. Thank you, Mr. Dong, and thank you, Mr. Gulliver, and thank you, Madame Bienvenue, for your very thorough and thought-provoking presentations today. It will serve a great benefit to our work. We very much appreciate the work you put into it and the thought that you have put into answering our questions. So thank you. We're going to suspend now for 3 minutes while we get ready for the next panel of witnesses and give you a chance to unplug. We are now suspended. our second panel of witnesses for the day, and we want to thank them all for being here. We have from the Canadian Alliance of Student Associations, Brenda Chastelain, Board Chair, from the Quebec Student Union, Jade Marcil, President, and from the University Students' Council at Western University, Matt Reeser, President, and Mackenzie Metcalf, Vice President, External Affairs. I understand Mr. Reeser and Ms. Metcalf are going to, Mr. de Chastelain and Ms. Marcil are appearing together, so they will share their 10 minutes. Perhaps we'll start with them and then move to CASA, to Western, I mean. Okay, Mr. de Chastelain and Ms. Marcil, please, for 10 minutes.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, fellow esteemed committee members, and fellow witnesses. I would like to begin my statement by acknowledging that I speak to you today from Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. My name is Brenda Chastelain, and I'm the chair of the Canadian Alliance of Student Associations, or CASA. I'm also the president of the St. Mary's University Students Association and a fourth-year student pursuing a Bachelor of Arts degree with a double major in political science and economics. CASA is a nonpartisan, not-for-profit organization that represents over 275,000 students at colleges, polytechnics, and universities from coast to coast. Through a formal partnership with the Union Étudiant de Québec, with whom I will be sharing time today, we are a trusted national student voice. CASA has been at the forefront of student advocacy efforts throughout the COVID-19 pandemic. We've been clear that students, like other Canadians, have been hit hard by the pandemic's economic and social impacts. At a uniquely vulnerable point in our lives, students have been blindsided by lost income, online classes, a summer of isolation, and bleak job prospects following graduation. Thankfully, on April 22nd, the federal government responded to our calls for support with a generous and significant student aid package. As a student leader, I would like to express my gratitude for this immediate and considerable support that was extraordinarily necessary in these unprecedented times. Many students are now seeing immediate support from either the Canada Emergency Response Benefit or the Canada Emergency Student Benefit, which together are providing an irreplaceable stopgap for students. These benefits are helping students keep food on the table and a roof over their heads, and we thank you for that. I would also like to highlight the generous additions to both Canada Student Grants and Canada Student Loans that were also announced on April 22nd. These improvements will help ensure that many students in Canada can continue to access and afford their education despite COVID-19 related hardship. These supports are welcomed by students across Canada, but not everybody has access to them. I would particularly like to highlight the lack of support available for international students during this quarantine period. Let's not forget that international students in Canada contribute an estimated $21.6 billion to Canada's GDP and support almost 170,000 jobs. On top of that, many international students in Canada plan to stay and contribute to our economy once they have graduated. According to the Canadian Bureau for International Education, 60% of international students in Canada plan to apply for permanent residency once they graduate from school. Many also continue to live and work in Canada over the summer between semesters, and the COVID-19 pandemic has robbed them of their opportunity to support themselves. These international students are stuck in Canada with no job prospects, groceries and rent to pay for, and little financial support from the federal government. As it stands, international students are ineligible for the Canada Emergency Student Benefit, meaning that those who have made less than $5,000 in the past year are left without access to desperately needed assistance. The Canada Emergency Response Benefit is available to international students, but the Canada Emergency Student Benefit is not, and we see that as fundamentally unfair. Many international students cannot work while in school and have lost the opportunity to do so over the summer. They need support, and we're asking the federal government to leave no student in Canada behind. Now, despite this gap surrounding international students, CASA is strongly supportive of the federal government's overall student aid efforts thus far. Looking forward, however, we at CASA are hearing that students are still very worried about their finances, their health, as well as the quality and accessibility of the upcoming digital semester. According to a recent poll we've commissioned at CASA, 77% of students in Canada report being considerably stressed by the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. We're stressed about what the pandemic means for our futures, about the health of our loved ones, and about finding employment after graduation. Students are reporting significant financial hardship, despite the relief provided by the CERB and the CESB. Close to 70% of students in Canada say their summer employment plans have been negatively affected by COVID-19. Of that 70%, 4 in 10 say they've lost all of their regular summer income due to the pandemic. 43% say they will be relying more on government loans to pay for the upcoming school year, and 59% say they are just as worried about covering their living expenses in January as they are today. Students are seeing real financial hardship on the horizon, and that's why CASA is calling on the government to consider additional support for students beyond September 2020. Specifically, we are asking the government to extend the 6-month interest-free moratorium on federal student loan payments past September 30th, 2020. Now, beyond financial concerns, CASA is also hearing that many students are second-guessing whether school in the fall is even worth it, given the less than ideal digital environment. Our data tells us that 39% of students have considered or have already deferred their fall semester. Along with this, 31% have also considered or have already switched from full-time to part-time studies. Students are rightly worried about the quality and accessibility of their classes in the fall, and we think there's more the federal government can do to ensure our next semester is a success. According to the CRTC, only 64% of rural residents have access to broadband internet fast enough to sustainably access the kind of video conferencing applications used for online learning, compared to 100% of urban residents. The OEC also ranks Canada in the top 10 of the most expensive countries for broadband internet access when adjusted for cost of living. In the 2019 election, the Liberals promised to ensure that every Canadian will have access to high-speed internet by 2030. CASA urges the federal government to accelerate this timeline and move forward with immediate steps to ensure that all post-secondary students have adequate access to reliable and high-speed internet in time for school this fall. Finally, we know that success in a digital classroom hinges on having the suitable technology to succeed. Digital learning, while necessary during the COVID-19 pandemic, will place the burden of possessing sufficient technology like computers on post-secondary students. According to our polling, almost 50% of students in Canada highlighted having the technology they need as a primary concern entering next semester. That's why we're also calling on the federal government to ensure that all students have sufficient access to digital technology. Specifically, we're asking the government to commit additional funding to provide appropriate digital technology to any low-income student who needs it. J'aimerais remercier la comité encore une fois.
To once again thank the committee for inviting me to speak and representing the voices of Canadian students. And I will now give the floor to my colleague, Jade Marcel, from the Quebec Students' Union. And then I look forward to answer your questions. Thank you. Madame Marcel, you have 3.5 minutes. You have the floor. Thank you. First of all, I would like to also mention that I'm currently on a territory that was shared by several indigenous nations over the years, and we're in the Greater Montreal area. So I'm Jade Marcel, president of the Quebec Students' Union. We represent 91,000 students across Quebec, and I would also like to thank you for receiving me and thanking my colleague Bryn for his testimony. First of all, we agree with the words spoken by Bryn just ahead of me, and I would also like to come up with 2 main points. Since Quebec was not able to directly receive the financial aid linked to the Canadian student loan programs, just a transfer, it's hard for us to really speak about this. So we would like to see more assistance for students, and we hope that there will be similar investments made in Quebec. As far as the issue raised, I would like to talk about the Canadian assistance program for students. It came just on time. The summer time, it's very hard to find work. There is a difference from region to region, but the unemployment rate is very high. And at that time, and we know that there has been a sharp drop in opportunities, job opportunities. And our students are already facing a lot of pressures on them. We are pleased to know that some of this assistance will be helping our students. There was a proposal made as far as a student assistance program. We are pleased to notice that they have included people with specific needs, handicapped people. We appreciate that measure. It's very important for us to underline the needs of these populations that have different challenges. The $1,200 amount is completely taken away if the student has a salary of more than $1,000. A proposal was made by the Bloc Québécois in the House, and we understand that that proposal put forward by the Bloc Québécois wasn't accepted because things moved too quickly. They were asking the government to ask too quickly, but we think that assistance would eventually, that there would be a boost in this amount, and we hope that measures will be put in place quickly. This will give great support to our students. I would also like to talk about funding for research in Quebec. For us, it's a very important aspect. Quebec has the FRQs, but in Canada we have federally funded institutions. So some of these measures taken in favor of students were very good. Many research projects were basically stopped after the closing of such an establishment. I'm thinking of all the educational research, because all schools were shut down. That research couldn't go on. We think it's important that assistance to research should be maintained over the next few months, and that there are 4-month extensions for this assistance. That would be very important for students to carry out research in their students' projects during the fall and even next year, mostly based on deconfinement. So for us, the Canadian government's response is adequate. For us, we're pleased to see that the student population was taken into account, especially in some of the financial measures that were taken quickly. We hope that the student population will still be at the center of some of the future measures to assist them over the next few weeks and months. And thank you once again for welcoming us today. Thank you.
Mr. Reeser, please. You have the floor for 10 minutes.
Thank you very much. So good afternoon, Mr. Chair, distinguished members, and fellow witnesses. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak with you today. My name is Matt Reeser, and I'm the president of the University Students' Council at Western University, alongside our Vice President, External Affairs, Mackenzie Metcalf, who is here with me today. I represent the interests of 30,000 undergraduate students on our university campus. Firstly, I would like to thank the Government of Canada for the action that has already been taken to support post-secondary students. The aid package has provided much needed financial support for many of us. We greatly appreciate your consultation and with post-secondary students on the government's response to COVID-19 and are excited to see it continue throughout the rebuilding process. As I'm sure that many, if not all of you have experienced, COVID-19 has transformed our lives as we know it. This March, as our university classes moved online, Western students experienced a shared sentiment of uncertainty. As we attempt to understand the new normal that we are living in, concerns about the state of our academic and co-curricular experiences, the quality and accessibility of post-secondary education, and our ability to maintain social connectedness continue to stress the vast majority of students. Looking back and reflecting on the early days of the COVID-19 response, many of us had no idea where our society would be in 1 week, let alone 3 months. As we sit here today in London, local restrictions have been lifted, and we are starting down the path towards the new normal. We are only certain of one thing. Our lives will change as a result of this pandemic forever. It is my opinion that we are still unsure of what the change will be, and I think we need to take time to reflect before setting a course forward. With that in mind, I will be focusing the rest of this time to speak on what I know for sure, and that is how students are dealing with COVID-19 right now. Throughout this time, our biggest priority is supporting our students. The USC is continually engaging with students through candid conversations and formalized feedback, and we would like to take this time to share their stories. A few weeks ago, I spoke with a second-year social science student at Western University who is living away from their hometown. The student expressed their immense gratitude for the financial support provided by the Canada Emergency Student Benefit, which has helped mitigate their financial concerns for this summer. In the same conversation, however, the student expressed their anxieties about the looming expenses of heading back to school this fall. Like many students, this individual works throughout their summers and nearly all of their evenings to fund their tuition, school supplies, rent, food, and personal necessities. Over the past several years, the student has not had much trouble finding jobs, at home or in London. But this year, as COVID-19 hit, this process has become much more difficult. The student has already signed a 12-month lease that they are now responsible for. Their parents have not been able to financially support them for the past couple of years. They currently have enough money to pay for the first 2 months of rent on a new lease, but they will rely on summer employment to pay for anything past that. They are not sure how they will be able to afford rent in a few months, not to mention another year of tuition and the other listed expenses. We appreciate the action that the government has already taken to support students financially for the 2020-2021 academic year. And we request that the doubling of the Canada Students Grant and the removal of expected students and spouses contributions be extended to the 2021-2022 academic year. We've also heard concerns from many of our international students, some of whom have been unable to head home due to travel restrictions. Our international students pay considerable tuition fees, but remain unable to access the CESB. We request that the government expand a pre-existing program or develop a new program to address financial concerns for these international students. As a recent graduate myself, I can attest to the uncertainty of the job market. A recent survey by StatsCan has shown that almost 1/3 of students who had secured jobs prior to March 2020 have now lost them. The students of today are the workforce of tomorrow, and I know that the vast majority of students would take advantage of opportunities to engage in meaningful, skills-based work experience this summer and beyond. As things continue to evolve in the coming months, we hope that the Government of Canada will continue to consult regularly with post-secondary students across the country to hear out their concerns and engage with their perspectives. I think that I speak for all student leaders when I say that we have the energy, the passion, and the expertise required to inform your response to COVID-19 moving forward. Mackenzie and I look forward to taking your questions. Thank you. Merci.
Thank you, Mr. Reeser. And we are going to begin now with questions, starting with Ms. Dancho for 6 minutes.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the witnesses today for being with us. I really appreciated your opening remarks. I'm going to be talking about or asking about a range of things that impact students. First, I'd like to ask, what do you think universities should be doing now to prepare for the event that you have to do virtual learning again in the fall? How can we adequately prepare for this, given that you had a crash course this March, as you mentioned, Mr. Reeser? What can your university be doing for the fall to prepare?
Yeah, so again, I think that's an extremely important question, that one that we've been attempting to answer as we go on. I would, however, like to, if possible, defer that to Mackenzie Metcalf, our Vice President External, as I think that would be a question better suited for her.
I think when it comes to preparing for fall online classes, universities are already taking measures to figure out what it's going to look like. Many universities in Ontario and across Canada have already made commitments to being either 100% online or a portion of courses will be offered in person. So I think it's really university specific, depending on how much of the courses will be online. But I also think it is important that universities take steps to preparing students to be able to learn online, because it is a fundamentally different learning environment than in-class lecture-based courses that they might be used to coming from high school or even in prior university courses.
Thank you. Thank you for that. My second question is concerning financial aid for students. Many students are, of course, supported by their parents in university, but also, in addition to that, access government student loans, which, if my memory serves correct, is actually dependent on the parents earning from the year prior, which, of course, as was mentioned, many parents have taken a serious hit to their income this year. So if the students weren't eligible last year because of their parents' income, that may not be the same this year going into the fall semester. So do you anticipate there will be a significant impact on fall enrollment because of the lack of parental support or the lack of access to student loan eligibility?
So I do expect that there will be many students who very seriously reconsider attending post-secondary
post-secondary education because of the costs. That is one of the reasons why we are asking for students' expected income and spouses' contributions to be also waived in the 2021-2022 academic year, because when you apply for programs like OSAP in Ontario, you have to declare your parents' income, and those are for tax years that would have not been impacted by COVID-19.
Right. And just over to CASA, I know that CASA, you represent, I think it's 300,000 students. Do you have any idea of what the impacts will be in terms of enrollment if students can't access government student loans or perhaps just direct support from their parents? Do you have any idea how many students will be impacted by that? If Mr. Chastelain, if you could respond to that.
Well, thank you for the question. And I think it's an important one that we need to be asking in terms of the next steps. And as I would call back to, we're already seeing that a significant chunk of students, nearly 40%, are already thinking about deferring their fall semester and potentially looking to come back at a time where university education is going to look a little bit more typical. And in that regard, right now, a lot of students are really thinking about how their university education is going to change as we continue to see universities across the country begin to shift to a hybrid form of delivery, or in some cases, completely remote or digital delivery entirely. So it's definitely something that's going to continue over the next few months as students make up their minds, but already we're seeing a significant portion of students rethink their involvement in the fall.
Thank you. Yeah, 40%, that's significant. That's a lot of people that might not be returning. So something for public policymakers to consider for sure. I'd also like to talk about mental health. This is something that was talked about in the last hour and was also mentioned in your opening remarks. So can we qualify the mental health impacts a little bit? What have been the causes of the mental health strain? I know these are very obvious to students, but just for parents who are watching, for example, can we qualify that a bit? Why are students feeling considerable mental strain? Just a list of things would be great to hear.
Yeah, and that's a very important question. I thank you for raising that. We're seeing, based on our recent survey data, that nearly 80% of students in Canada report being considerably stressed at this time, and 60% of those students are saying that this is a direct result of COVID-19. And there's a number of things to consider here. I would first draw to health and wellness, and a number of students are worried about the health and well-being of their family members, potentially of their peers and their colleagues. And it also goes to their future prospects, whether that comes to what university education is going to look like, stress about whether they'll be able to find employment after graduation as well. This is definitely a period of uncertainty that is unprecedented for students and is creating a number of challenges in terms of how we view the next stage of our lives.
I can understand that for sure. But the uncertainty is very challenging. I remember coming out of university, and that was stressful enough trying to find a job, let alone in a COVID-19 economy. I'd love to hear a little bit of elaboration on that from the other panelists as well. Sort of those mental health impacts. What are you hearing from your students? Why are they feeling 60% are being significantly impacted with their mental health?
Yeah, I would love to speak to that because that's also a large priority in what I was able to speak to in the opening remarks regarding the connectedness and the uncertainty were two words that are that come to mind whenever I've been speaking to any students at our campus. And I think the main thing that people are missing is the aspects of university that aren't within the classroom. There are things that aren't necessarily tangible, but those in between conversations and interactions can mean a lot. And we've definitely seen that, especially for many of us, the feeling of the fatigue that comes with numerous calls of Zoom or whatever platform it may be. That's something we're definitely working on and trying to find ways that, given Western is utilizing a blended model, to find any way from our possibility to increase those human interactions in still a safe and controlled manner.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Doncho, and thank you, Mr. Reeser. We're going to go now to Mr. Young, but before we do, just been asked to remind you, Mr. Reeser, to make sure that you hold your mic when you're responding so that interpretation can pick it up. To Ms. Young, please, for 6 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you to all of our witnesses. Of course, I'm most interested in talking to the witnesses, Mr. Reeser and Ms. Metcalf from London, because that's where I'm from, London West, and I appreciate you being on this Zoom call. And I wanted to pick up on the mental health issues because I think this is something that I'm very concerned that in another 6 months, we're going to be hearing some tragic stories coming from our post-secondary education areas. And I just wondered what advice you might have for some of the students who are going to be going to Western in the fall, going to university in the fall, and some of the challenges they may face. What advice would you have for them?
So I think that's, I would say that's a question that I've been asking myself every day since taking my post, in the sense that so main aspects to Western's community involve kind of the orientation program. And there's various things that we operate that offer that kind of that connectedness and that the bonds that form as a result of many of the programs that we're offering. So in terms of what we're looking to do, and I guess to answer your question directly in terms of the advice, I think it's something that I've been attempting to do myself as I've been working in this new Zoom paradigm, is to take time for ourselves, in the sense that there needs to be opportunities for rest and for people to get away from looking at their screen for 10 plus hours a day. So I guess my advice to that with students is still to reach out in any way possible to their loved ones and their friends, especially as they're coming onto our campus. And a big task that's on our plate, and we're working with our Vice President of Student Support and Programming to really work towards online programming that can create these connections and these relationships that last the entirety of your university. So my advice is to take care of ourselves and take care of our loved ones.
Ms. Metcalf, would you like to comment on that?
Yes, I would also like to stress that, I would like to stress the added stress that often comes when students have to work part-time during university, especially when we talk about going to a full or blended model of online learning, having to do what you have to do to get your degree and go to classes, along with possibly having being immunocompromised and dealing with the added anxieties of COVID-19 and having to work a part-time job and go into a society that isn't really safe because we can only stand 6 feet away from each other. So these are a lot of things that are really on the minds of students. And I think that it's going to be a lot more stressful not having those community supports, as well as Matt iterated.
So while summer jobs may be hard to come by, what you're saying is the students, even if they were offered a job, they might be hesitant to take it?
Yes, so a lot of students who were offered summer jobs actually had them canceled. A Stats Canada survey said that actually 67% of students were extremely concerned about having no job prospects in the future because of the way our economy has changed. So that really impacts their ability to be able to provide for themselves and work full-time over the summer, or even part-time during the school year, so they wouldn't have the income that they're used to in supporting themselves for tuition, for rent, and other associated living expenses.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chasseltain, I'd just like to go over what you mentioned, and I think it's worth repeating. You said that this is a uniquely vulnerable time in your lives, and I don't think that can be understated. I know that as a government, we've put many programs forward, and I feel confident that it will help students. But can you speak to some of the challenges that students will still face in the fall?
Well, thank you for the question. It's extremely important for us to consider the situation that students find themselves in right now. And, we've gone from a period of having to rapidly shift from an in-person to an online learning environment back in mid-March for most schools. And for a lot of students, life has not gone back to normal since then. So in terms of some of the vulnerabilities that we're facing, so many students are struggling to find work at this time, or trying to ensure that they're able to find safe work conditions as well, and trying to prepare themselves for the fall in a learning environment that they're not familiar with, as again we go back to some form of hybrid or remote delivery. And in that regard, I would say that a number of students have been able to benefit from the programs put forward by the federal government. And we were fortunate to hear that from the Prime Minister on June 8th that roughly 25% of the student population in Canada are already accessing the emergency student benefit. And that's in addition to the number of students that are already accessing the emergency response benefit as well. But that said, these are programs that are getting students through the summer for the time being. It's taking away some of the immediate stress of buying groceries, of paying rent, but the financial stress of the fall and years to come is still very much present for students and something that's in the back of our minds at all times.
How much time do I have left, Mr. Chair?
14 seconds.
Oh, okay. I'll pass it on to my next colleague. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Ms. Young. Suite, Madame.
Mrs. Michaud, welcome to the committee. You have the floor. Thank you. And thank you to the witnesses. I would like to ask a question to Mrs. Marcil. And congratulations on your new job. It's a pleasure to work with you, and I think we can agree to say that the current situation is unique. It's difficult for everyone involved, and the government has implemented certain measures. I was pleased to see that UEC was for a proposal that was not retained. We thought that this could create an incentive for jobs, that is to implement a type of system such as EI, where you don't see your revenue completely cut if you exceed the $1,000. So of all these measures, I would like to hear you speak to transparency. Was it sufficiently clear the way that the government implemented the measures for students? Thank you, Mrs. Michaud. The announcement was in April, and there was a long wait. And we looked at the eligibility criteria, and
so there was some anxiety created for students. And when the
Le critère du $1,000 d'emploi a principalement créé chez nous quelques craintes. Je comprends que, étant donné que c'est des mesures qui sont mises de l'avant très rapidement, on peut se dépêcher. Par contre, là, juste sur le site de l'ARC.
Oh, but on the site of the Canada Revenue Agency, the information is not very well laid out. It's hard to get detailed information. It's hard for our students individually. We are lucky to be able to seek information, have contacts, put pressure to get information. So we try to hand out the information to our students. But the main issue is when they say that the $1,000 has to be employment income and that student loans are not included when you're in school. We know there are different types of student loans. There is the federal program, the Quebec program, the indirect research scholarships. So when you're salaried and as a researcher and you have a teaching scholarship, there are so many different criteria. So I think we would require more specific information on the website. I know there have been some improvements over the last few weeks, but we can always seek for more and maybe improve the frequently asked questions. That would be interesting. Our students believe that the best person to handle this is the government and that these measures be taken quickly. Thank you. I'll also ask, earlier we were discussing the restart of virtual courses. How will you implement this? The gradual relaunching of activities. We know for students, the sectors they work, like retail trade, restaurants, hotels. I was a student not such a long time ago. I worked in restaurants throughout my studies. The situation has changed radically. So how could the government better accompany students to make this recovery as easy for them as possible? Yes, there are several announcements that were made in terms of job promotions for the youth, and we're quite grateful for that. We know it's important to have this recovery, but sometimes these jobs are in certain specific regions. We have a lot of students in the Montreal region, and they don't often have the right job opportunities. and with the specific situations of confinement in Montreal, we know it's very difficult. In Quebec, generally, too. So I know that there is talk of volunteer scholarships, community work assisting people in the population that need help the most. So we know this is coming this summer, but that's an investment for work for young people that will help. And in the CEGEPs, we know there will be some additional jobs available. We would have to follow some of the public health norms in deconfinement, and maybe some of the student assistance programs would make things easier for everyone. Yes, you said the Canada Emergency Student Benefit was very useful for people who couldn't find work. You spoke about research earlier. We know that the federal grants agencies prolonged the funding. You raised that point earlier, but there are specific projects. There were some delays. Can you give us some more detail on those delays? Yes, there are some research areas in which it is much harder. First of all, I have a BA in education, and I started a master's in education on my research project. I was meant to go before a classroom with actual students. So all the research done in businesses, all of that has been slowed down. We're talking about administrative research, social science research, all forms of research in health sciences, and you know that that sector is really overwhelmed right now. The research has kind of been set aside. So I think the extensions of funding for students and indirect funding, that they should be extended beyond the 4-month period, because just relaunching a project represents a lot of money for students and for universities. They are trying to support the student population, but the access to the research locations is much harder. And so in some cases, some projects are being delayed by even a year. So it's important that the OSF should explain these needs and make sure that research projects are still ongoing throughout Canada. Thank you, Madame Michaud.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'd like to thank all the witnesses as well for your presentation. Before I begin, I wonder if this is possible, Mr. Chair, and that is for us to invite the Canadian Federation of Students to come to committee as they represent some 64 student unions across the country. I thought it was very informative to hear from the various student representations here today, but there are some that are missing, and maybe I think be beneficial for the committee to hear from them. So I just want to put that out there, Mr. Chair. On the issue around support for students and the impact of COVID-19 and the stresses, the financial stresses, the uncertainty into the future and so on, given that the Canadian emergency support for students is limited. And we heard from panelists earlier, from witnesses earlier, that indicated that the ongoing pressures for students and the substantive pressure in terms of financial pressure for them is not really any different from anyone else, whether you're a student or otherwise. And so the differential in amounts paid to students in this emergency support is a concern for them. And they were asking for the government to reconsider this. As well, they were also asking for the government to reconsider some of the eligibility components. Some of the students may be in a situation where after this school year, they are without a job, or some of the contracts or job opportunities has been canceled. And as a result of that, they are not eligible for support from the government. Case in point would be interns, actually. Many of the interns have contacted me and said that they do not their contract has been canceled, and as a result, they would not be eligible for any financial support from the government. And because the internship is an unpaid internship, they also don't qualify even at this time. So I just want to ask our witnesses on addressing those issues that were brought up, what your thoughts are and whether or not the government should be making adjustments in this regard. So we can just rotate through. How about we start with Mr. Reeser?
Yes, and I again, an extremely important question, but I would like to defer it to our specialists within our team for these kind of external affairs. So if Mackenzie Metcalf would be open to answering that, I'd greatly appreciate that.
Yes, thank you, Matt. So I would agree that students are very thankful for this CESB and the $1,200 that is provided. However, it only covers rent and groceries in our current times, and many students have to look forward to tuition for the coming year and how they are going to afford the next 8 months when they're in school. So I would agree that we would call on the government to increase the CESB to be the $2,000 that the CERB is. And that also international students being left out of the CESB, it can be really harmful. In Ontario, international students pay 460% more in tuition according to Statistics Canada. And though that is regulated provincially, it is really important that we take into consideration the diverse needs of our international students and that they are also supported because they really meaningfully contribute to Canada's economy as well.
Thank you, Ms. Metcalf. How about on the issue around recognizing interns, unpaid interns whose job is not recognized as a job because they're unpaid, and so therefore they are not qualified for CERB. And some of them, even though they've landed a prestigious internship, their contract's been canceled following the completion of the internship because of COVID. What are your thoughts on that in terms of support for them?
I completely agree that we need to support our interns, especially the unpaid interns here in Canada, and that they should also receive supports just like any other working Canadian.
So qualifying them for CERB then?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, I'd like to turn to Ms. Marcel, if I may, on the same questions.
Oui. Oui.
Yes. The situation of the interns is quite troubling for us. Since the situation with the internships, there will be a lot fewer internships available. Some will have interns, some not. It will be harder to go far for these internships. We have a lot of unpaid internships. So taking into the fact that students are working, but they don't have any associated salary to make them accessible to this assistance, that would be a very important matter. Quebec has some student loan programs. Quebec offers support to interns. But if they could have some encouragement to attend these internships, they can learn and work at the same time.
Castellane, please.
Thank you. And I would add to this, we are seeing a lot of confusion from students in terms of eligibility for either the emergency student benefit or the emergency response benefit. So I would go beyond looking at unpaid interns on their own and thinking about a lot of students that are finding themselves confused as to their eligibility for these programs. In our recent polling, we found that only 47% of students were 100% sure that they were eligible for the emergency student benefit. And in fact, we're seeing more than a quarter of students that aren't even sure if they're eligible for any program. So I think there needs to be more work done here to ensure that students are aware of which programs they are eligible for, and especially what to do when they may be eligible for both the CERB and the CESB.
Thank you, Ms. Kwan, and thank you, Mr. de Chastelain. Next, we're going to go to Mr. Albus for 5 minutes, please.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the Quebec Students' Union, I have heard some members from throughout the country raise several issues with the Canada Jobs summer program. And even in my own riding, I've heard that there would be fewer jobs this year compared to the previous years. Do you expect to have fewer jobs for students at the national level this year? And where the needs are highest, will there be some specific issues? Yes, thank you for the question. I think the job opportunities are fewer. First of all, there are so many places that cannot reopen, all related to tourism, leisure, generally speaking. A lot of students work in these areas over the summer. And even if the Canada Summer Jobs Program can give some supplements to some corporations, we will still not reach the previous levels. So it's important that the student emergency benefit be maintained and that additional amounts be taken into account for people with specific needs. We know that these jobs will not be available, especially because of the public health measures, and we respect that. We must follow the instructions for de-quarantining. So I think it's very important to have some additional assistance, at least minimal levels, until the end of August, and maybe a little more since there are seasonal jobs that are ending around August to October. I'm thinking about some open air type areas and so on. Should the government has increased the summer jobs program budget instead of simply supporting fewer jobs, so as they have done? What do you think about that? There are several projects that were supported, but we could have always supported more. There was a high number, and there were some delays in receiving things.
Canada.
However, to increase the number of jobs would be greatly appreciated when it's possible in some regions, obviously.
So next I'll go to the University Student Council at Western University. Very simply, Conservatives proposed a program to the government to pair students looking for work to available agricultural jobs. Do you think that program would have been helpful for students?
Hello, thank you for the question. Through the chair, I think that students are thankful for any support that they're getting from the Government of Canada. However, I think it is important to note that students are pursuing higher education in order to gain experience in their industries, and that students are really interested in gaining meaningful work opportunities so that they can use the degree that they are pursuing at post-secondary education.
Thank you. So I'd like to go to CASA. On April 22nd, the government announced a variety of student programs. Now, one of these was a volunteer incentive called the Canada Student Service Grant. It is now almost 2 months later. There's no program available for students, and we are already into the summer break. Do you feel the significant delay in rolling out the program is a problem and will negatively impact students who may be waiting to access it?
Thank you for the question. I think that, as you mentioned, there were a number of programs announced on April 22nd that positively benefited students. And I know that a number of us have been eagerly waiting to see how the Canada Student Service Grant will take shape and what opportunities it'll provide students in terms of being able to receive funding for activities and experience opportunities as well for students throughout the summer. I think it's fair to say that students are looking for work in whatever capacity that they can get it right now and looking for opportunities to gain experience that might be relevant to their field or going to be relevant to their lives moving forward. And in that regard, I'm looking forward to seeing a little bit more information on the Canada Student Service Grant in terms of what that will bring for students, what opportunities it'll bring, and potentially how many students will be able to access it moving forward.
So on this program.
Merci, Mr. Albus.
Thank you, Mr. Albus.
Castellane, and finally, we're going to go to Mr. Kuzmarchuk for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Chair, and I'll be splitting my time with MP Vaughn.
Congratulations, first and foremost, Bryn, on your election to the position of chair for CASA. I really enjoyed meeting CASA in February when they were up on Parliament Hill for their advocacy week. Really enjoyed sharing your views and listening to your views. In April, early on, when the pandemic was still unfolding, CASA published a document titled Safeguarding the Future by Protecting Students, CASA's Advocacy Priorities during COVID-19. The report listed 5 priority recommendations, including, for example, creating a CERB student stream and increasing Canada student grants by 40%. I just wanted to get your feedback. How did our government do in terms of those 5 priorities listed in that report?
I think it's, and thank you for the question. And similarly, it was, an honor for students to be able to be in February and meeting with members such as yourself. And in that regard, CASA was very happy to see a number of the programs that were implemented on April 22nd. And most notably, the emergency student benefit has gone on to support a very high number of students already. And it's definitely something that's bringing students a lot more comfort through the summer as they continue to need to pay rent on the first of each month and pay their bills as they prepare to hopefully go back to school in the fall. There are definitely some gaps that we still see with these programs, and notably for the emergency student benefit, we're hoping that the federal government will commit to not leaving any student in Canada behind. And in that regard, we're hoping to see, the emergency student benefit extended to international students to allow international students to mitigate some of the challenges that they're facing through the summer as well. And with that, we're hopeful that some of these programs will continue to be aware of the gaps that have been created and hopefully to fill some of those to allow more students to be able to have some of their concerns addressed through the summer.
Thank you very much for that answer. And I know my colleague, I'm glad that he raised the question of meaningful work experiences for young people. I can tell you work integrated learning is really critical for students that are looking to get real world job experience. And we know how critical it is for young people to enter the job market. And this government since 2015 has spent $1.1 billion on work integrated learning and job experiences for young people. And that includes 20,000 spaces this year through the Student Work Placement Program, and additional 10,000 placements through the Business Higher Education Roundtable, which we're rolling out. But we also learned from a StatScan report recently that about a third of those wills were canceled or postponed because of COVID. I just wanted to ask you to provide maybe some suggestions or ideas how those wills could be adapted moving forward to be able to be carried out.
Yeah, I think first and foremost, work integrated learning is becoming more of an important part of university education, and students are continuing to look for meaningful experience within their field and how they can integrate that into their university or post-secondary degrees more broadly. And in that regard, students are continuing to look for work throughout this period, and regardless of whether students have been able to access the emergency student benefit, the emergency response benefit, or other programs, students are continuing to look for employment and looking for that experience. And I think as we head back to the fall, looking to expand co-op programs, looking to provide additional opportunities for students to be making money during their degree will be important, and hopefully allow students to feel comfortable coming back to campus and entering an environment where they'll be able to make a little bit of money on top of attending classes and completing their degree requirements.
Thank you very much. And Chair, I will yield the remainder of my time.
Thanks very much to Mr. Chastelin. Just to be clear about this, you're aware that international students can qualify for CERB if they have, for example, taken advantage of the 20 hours a week they're allowed to work or may work as part of co-op placements in university courses. If they have earned $5,000 in the last year and they have lost employment, you're aware that international students have been made eligible to apply for CERB?
Yes, we are aware of that. And one of the challenges that we've identified is that a number of international students are restrained by the requirements on their study visas based on the number of hours they can work. And it can definitely be challenging for international students in particular to find employment during the school year. So we are hearing from a number of our members about those challenges.
And you're also aware that we lifted that 20-hour limitation in key sectors which were declared essential work around transportation, food service, and a series of other things related to COVID, especially for medical students.
Yeah, we're aware of that as well, and we think that continues to be important to allow international students to be able to work during the year and receive funding for that, or receive money for that they can use back towards their education. That said, we still identify a gap for students that have not made over $5,000 in the last year, and those are, in most cases, are international students that are staying in Canada in the hopes of being able to contribute to our communities and contribute to the campuses that they study at as well as we go back to the fall. So we're hoping to see similar funding applied to those international students to allow them to feel comfortable coming back to campus in September.
Thank you, Mr. Vaughan, and thank you, Mr. de Chastelain, and thanks to all of the witnesses for being with us today. Your insights are greatly appreciated and valued in our work. Folks, we've reached the appointed hour. I wish you all a very good weekend. Thank our witnesses for being with us. And we're adjourned. We'll see you Monday.
Happy Friday.